Good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, and it sounds like we've got good propagation at the moment. It's the 20th of May, Monday, and all systems seem to be going here, so that's excellent. Patricia and David, ZMH286, get the official part over with first. Yes, we usually start on the hour, but I'm usually here a bit on the quarter hour, usually here a bit before. We're still trying to get to grips with what is the best time propagation-wise on 8 megs. So if you can give some feedback at some stage, some of you are radio people, to tell us whether it's stronger at the start or at the end or in the middle or whatever, that would be quite useful from time to time. But I know everybody's got other things on their mind today with that lovely blob that's approaching you. If you happen to be on the round about the date line, you folk that are heading to Vanuatu and Newcastle don't really have to worry about it. You can just sit and drink coffee and listen to the news shortly. But we've got quite a lot of people who have a bit of work to do in terms of making a decision one way or the other. And David will certainly be covering that shortly. But I'm just going to briefly pause to see if there's anybody who doesn't email in and wants to give a position. Please call now.
Local talent?
Local talent, good morning to you guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think email the position in but basically we are 2253 south, 17033 east. We're about 160 miles from Vanuatu. Wind is 20-25 knots from the south-southeast, 2 to 3 meters swell, and the bar is 10-19. All well, over.
Oh, sounds good. An excellent signal from you too over there. So that's interesting. The propagation is working well across quite a bit of longitude this morning. So for those that didn't hear local talent, and it was a very, very good signal. Hang on a minute, I'm just trying to get something up here. Anyway, Dean and Gail are at 22531733, only 160 miles to go, and they've got really good winds, 20 to 25 south-southeast, so I bet you're ripping along quite well, 2 to 3 metre swells. So hopefully they're in the same direction to give them a bit of a push. All right, thank you for that, and a really, really good copy. Is there anybody else? Well, there was somebody there. Dean, did you hear who that was?
I can't hear with Ganesh.
Ganesh, Fatty, you've got an absolutely terrible radio. Okay, dear, if you could just ask how far to New Caledonia, is all well, and what's the weather?
The connection to 130 to Newcastle, 130 miles, is in the southeast with a 20 knots.
Oh, good. Strong winds, well, they're not strong, are they? What would you call fresh? That's the word, fresh winds. Fresh winds, and he's got 130 miles to go. So good morning, Fatty and Carolyn. Southeast 20 over there, so no problems at all, especially I meant to comment that because John on Midnight Sun had reminded us that you don't want to be in South Minerva with southwest winds, but there's no chance of that for a while, so that's good. All right, thank you for that. And just a quick bit of news, especially for the Australians. You probably know by now, we were all expecting yet another change of government, and I had all my rude comments ready to go. But miraculously, PM Turnbull managed, from the Liberal Party, managed to get back into power. All of the polls said that Labor would sweep through. And you do begin to wonder about the value of polls. I have to say that absolutely nobody has predicted polls in the polls correctly. It's just a lot of money wasted.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, yes. All of the, whether it happened to be Brexit or American elections, Australian elections, even our own elections here, absolutely none of the polls have been correct.
Well, they use their poll models.
Models. Yes. Oh dear. I couldn't believe that David would say that. They used poll models. Well, there you are. You just go and sit yourself down. I'm sure all the people out there have written 100 times what you've asked them to write. But anyway, Liberal got 74 seats, Labour 65, the Greens 1, and various others 5. So we've got the same parliament in Australia, our next door neighbours. Talking about polls and how useless they are, in the USA, the spy chiefs are offering $250,000 in a competition that tests how someone can predict future unknowns, such as a political election results, missile tests, the price of gold, or whatever. It's designed to test forecasting techniques. I suspect that there won't be any meteorologists able to enter that competition.
There'll be no climatologists.
There'll be no climatologists either. But there you are. You can use computer modelling or whatever. I don't know how they're going to judge this particular competition.
They have to wait till the day.
Clearly, the rest of the world is also a little bit puzzled about how to forecast worldwide events. Getting on to things like models, and I just wanted to let you know, Max on Y2K, he's a good IT type person. He's put a fantastic set of stuff that you can download from the internet related to weather, and he's got them all in very doable bite-sized chunks, all sorts of really useful stuff. He's got all of the analysis charts from Fiji that come out, the weather maps from New Zealand, and these products are actually done by meteorologists, so they're not just your computer model stuff. He's got text bulletins and the analysis chart from Meteo France and New Caledonia. Absolutely superb stuff in a format that is not going to break the bank on your download, whatever system you use.
We're obsolete now.
Davidson, we're obsolete. Still need to interpret it. I have put his site and all the things that he covers on our website. If you go to www.ghradio.co.nz, click on weather, and down the bottom you will see that there is weather products in the South Pacific, and I have put his website there, and if you just click read more, I've got all of the different options that he's done. He's just done a magnificent job, so there's really no excuse for not getting proper meteorological data. This is all stuff that is done by meteorologists in the various places that affect your cruising area in the South Pacific. So thank you, Max, for making that available, and you'll find it there. If you can't get on the internet at the moment and you want to sort of see this stuff, I'll just send you his link. All right, moving on. You think New Zealand roads are bad, and certainly our workmen are the slowest workmen we think in the world, but in the USA there is also a lot of concern over the road and bridge infrastructure. There's been all sorts of problems arise, and stuff on the internet shows you how bad some of the bridges are. This Wednesday, Congress and Mr. Trump are meeting to work out how to pay for a $2 trillion, this is US, $2 trillion infrastructure plan. Presumably it's going to involve higher taxation on fuel. The fuel costs over there are still pretty low compared to the rest of the world, but I'm sure Americans don't think so, and they do drive longer distances than we have to. But boy, is that an infrastructure plan, $2 trillion. Okay, it's from the sublime to the ridiculous. In Israel, they've had the Eurovision Song Contest that they have every year, and this year a very little known singer, Duncan Lawrence from the Netherlands. That doesn't sound very Dutch to me, but anyway, Duncan Lawrence was fantastic, evidently, and he beat Italy and Russia for the title. And that means that the next contest next year will be hosted by the winner, which is in the Netherlands. This one was in Israel, and it had quite a few political problems, of course, associated with it, with people wanting to make a point other than musical things. Madonna, however, she had a segment on there, gave a very good performance, as she generally does, and she had dancers from both Israel and Palestine in her show. They had flags on their backs, so I suppose that helped to identify them in case there was a lone sniper in the audience. You wouldn't want to have someone shot that was on your side, would you? But anyway, it was a pretty good kitschy type performance from everybody, and that was the end of the Eurovision Song Contest. Not such good news, but evidently New Zealand has the highest rate of domestic violence in the developed world. Well, that's the recorded rate, and what they have done now, they have researched why people stayed with their partners, and a lot of them, a very high percentage of them, stayed because of the family pet that had to watch being ill-treated by their partner. And so they have opened up in one place in Auckland here a pet refuge for those pets that are in a situation of family violence. And this means that people that are there can actually leave knowing that their pets are going to be looked after. Rugby. Now, I don't usually talk about sport on here because we don't really follow a lot of it, but we have a team in Auckland called the Blues, and they're absolutely beautifully named because they really don't know how to win. But they actually beat the Chiefs in the weekend, 23-8. So we have a section in the paper every Monday. It's called the Monday Blues, and it's very well named because it really is a discussion on why they didn't actually score anything. But there you are, Monday Blues today. I haven't read it yet. Had more things to worry about. But in fact, I'll tell you why I was distracted this morning. I got a text and email from a very, very good friend in northern part of the United States. I got it from his wife, actually. He's much younger than me. We work together in Philadelphia. And he's just gone into hospital and had a multiple bypass. Now, Ravi has never eaten meat in his life. He is Indian and has never eaten meat in his life. So it's quite interesting. You know, we think that heart disease here is because we eat way too much meat. But he is he doesn't play much sport, but he has 4 kids, so that keeps him pretty busy.
Dairy and whatnot.
Yeah, they do have a lot of dairy, I suppose.
They get saturated fat.
Saturated fat, but he's not overweight, and it was a shock to me. But it just goes to show anybody can succumb. I don't know what his family background is, but boy, if you've got that sort of problem in the family, you really do need to be very careful.
Yeah, well.
Okay, just going through streaming before I hand the microphone to he who is going to try and put some sense into this disturbed situation at the moment.
We'll do questions after.
Did I say? Oh, I said Turnbull. Morrison. I've just been reminded clearly by an Aussie. Thank you, Sally. I don't know why I put Turnbull in. Goodness gracious me. It is Scott Morrison, who is the Prime Minister in Australia. Boy, I was distracted this morning. All right, we've got a few others, and it's a calm day up there in the Bunda cyclone pit. Non-stop still there. Time you got her in the water. Limited cloud, not much sign of the low, other than the wind is up a bit. So what we'll do now is I'll just do a pause to see if anybody else wants to come in with anything. Is there anybody wanting to make contact with Gulf Harbour Radio? Please call now. I've got one person there, and I haven't worked out the name there. Two words, but go ahead, over. Oh, it's Alchemy 2. Sorry about that. Good morning to Alchemy 2. Go ahead.
Good morning, Patricia. have just emailed through a position report slightly concerned about the weather arriving in Tonga Friday.
So you're carrying on to Tonga arriving Friday, is that correct?
Possibly, depending on conditions. Each plan is for Tonga. If the winds are too strong, we will go to Minerva.
Okay, got it. So you're on your way. I'm just updating my emails here to see that I have in fact got it, and I'm talking at the same time. Stand by. No, I haven't. Did you send it to us? Over.
Affirmative.
And that was ghradio@extra.co.nz.
Wasting time.
Hopefully you sent it to ghradio@extra.co.nz. Maybe you are sending it. I'm just checking to see whether I've got your email address here. Alchemy2 Sale Mail. Yes, it might just be taking a while to get through the Sale Mail server in Australia. All right, folks, I'll get back to you if it doesn't come in while David's talking. But he's got a lot to talk about, so I'm passing the microphone.
Yeah, pretty brave heading on to Tonga, but let's take a look at things. And there is plenty of weather out there, that's for sure. Now, well, yesterday I sent out a couple of things to a number of folks. Most of you probably have read an update that I put out yesterday. But anyhow, we'll get onto it at the moment. Now, this morning, I think we're just going to focus on developments with Tropical Depression 12F, also known as 95P, Papa, 95 Papa, and the yachts en route to the islands as well. So we're going to focus on those two things. Now, be aware that the three basic models, GFS, ECMWF, and UK Met, well, they're not in agreement. And that's a bit of a worrisome thing, particularly when we have a situation that could really go virtually anywhere. But we do know a couple of things for sure, and we'll start, I think, with the synoptic picture. So by lunch today, our Tasman High is going to lie a bit east of Sydney, pretty strong, at 1030 millibar, 1030, while all of the southern ocean depressions continue to roll east, and they are, of course, south of New Zealand. Now, flow over New Zealand, airflow, for the past week has been cyclonic, and that is the reason for the putrid weather that we've been having here in the country. It's sun, cloud, showers, then sun, cloud, showers, etc., etc. And this is very, very typical when you have cyclonic flow. Now, the ridge is trying to poke in, but the main air mass is still coming from the southern depressions, and they are bringing different density air, and when they're hitting the different temperatures of the ocean and the land here in New Zealand, we do get a lot of uplift and we get the clouds and the showers. So that is almost an automatic thing when you see cyclonic flow almost anywhere in the world, really. You are going to get conditions that are not particularly stellar. Now, we also find by satellite this morning a quasi-stationary front that's just to the north of New Zealand, just south of 30, and it's running east-west. And we also see via satellite troughs that are north of 25, and those are running more or less north-south. These troughs are embedded in the ridge that is being created by the high that we just talked about. Now, yesterday, GFS decided to fizzle Tropical Depression 95P, and we got a number of emails alerting me to that. But on closer examination, that absolutely was not true. Satellite IR imagery showed the depression in all of its glory spinning away just northwest of Rotuma. And in addition to that, I looked at our microwave satellite. We had a fairly decent swath yesterday afternoon. And that does not lie. And it clearly showed cyclonic winds to 40 knots. And the center of that was located at about 10 and 176 east. Now, by lunch today, that center, that tropical depression center, looks to be around 12 south and 178 west, so on the other side of the dateline. Now, some of the models are still calling it west of the dateline, but that's what I mean when I say that they're not in agreement. Now, ensemble forecasts show the depression to be heading more or less for the eastern side of Fiji in a couple of days. That would be Wednesday. And accompanying this looks like a polar dip in the isobars, and that is observed in the ridge that is sitting out there due to the high. Now, the polar dip could be a friend for those underway and going to Vanuatu or Newcastle, providing southeast winds through Friday. However, GFS by around Saturday shows a possible depression forming on the run lines in Newcastle, plus associated rain and squalls with this. So that's not a very good prognosis for those still in port. And we have a number of them. And as I responded, I mentioned that Camellia on our boat would probably stay in port. It's just a little bit too risky. Too many things are unknown. And of course, we're old. We like nice conditions. And, well, yeah, we're chalking up the years. So, yeah, we'd stay in port if we were still here in New Zealand. Now, this morning's tropical depression, 95P's center, was located near 12 south, and as I said, just east of the dateline, and that's based on satellite imagery. A little bit of a trick on that, trying to find the center, particularly when the depression itself is a little bit diffuse. You have to almost be an artist to try to find the middle, but that's how it looks to me. Now, by midnight tomorrow, it's a little bit smaller in size, and it's projected to be pretty much over northeastern Fiji, the northeast side, sort of between the Lau group and Vanuatu, right in that area. Now, by late Wednesday, a couple more days now, a polar dip indeed wishes to form. If you draw a line from Fiji to New Zealand, that's the axis based on a number of the models. But winds are still cyclonic over Fiji. We still have cyclonic flow. Now, by Friday, I'm not sure that the depression will still exist. The winds over Tonga look to be east to northeast 25 knots. Northerlies are covering the Lau, and northwesterlies over central Fiji, and that includes Savu Savu and Kandavu. Well, looking at Minerva Reef, I would say basically we've got light to moderate southeast winds for today. The people that are there have been reporting more or less those conditions. Possibly convective activity Tuesday, tomorrow. Now, the axis of the dip is going to be possibly tomorrow morning with the winds backing maybe east-northeast there. We'll see if that happens. Now, this annoying axis swings west later on Wednesday. That's why I'm calling it annoying. Not only the wind direction is not nice, but it continually changes because the axis is changing. So Minerva winds easterly then plus or minus on that direction. Now, EC is not going to let go of cyclonic circulation over Fiji through Friday. They're maintaining, have been maintaining for the last 3 or 4 days that that's going to be the case. And it does look like fairly heavy convective activity over Tonga by then as well. Now, I think what I'll do is I'll give you my best estimate of winds over the next few days. Tonga, southeast 15 to 20 today. Tuesday, east to east-southeast 20 to 25. On Wednesday, east to east-northeast 25 to 30. Thursday changes again, looks like easterlies 25 to 30. Then back Friday, it goes northeast one more time, 20 to 25. So there's no real consistency in the wind direction. It's fluctuating one way or the other. The models are having a very difficult time in pinning this down. Now, Fiji Met, they have a strong wind warning in place. They have had one. Southeast 20 to 25, gusting 30. And tomorrow, southeast 20 to 30. Now, I'm seeing Tuesday evening north-northeast winds for the Savu Savu area. So those of you that were attempting to get up to Savu Savu in that time frame are going to be bucking right into this mess. And it's not just the wind. There's some pretty good seas involved in this as well. On Wednesday, we've got cyclonic flows centered, from what I can see, just north of the Osawas. Southeast winds 30 knots over Kadavu and northerlies over Savu Savu. So this is on Wednesday. On Thursday, the center is smack over Viti Levu. Winds southerly over to the west, westerlies in the north, and then northerlies to the east. So you can see the cyclonic rotation, if you will. Now, Saturday and Sunday, I'm seeing northerly winds, light to moderate, over southern Fiji. So, well, that's not very good either, is it? Although they are light. And also on Sunday, I'm picking up light and variable. And in fact, it's probably a motor day on Sunday. So back to Minerva. I gave just some brief thought, I guess you'd say, about making the run from Minerva to Tongatapu, mainly based on the slowness of the depression and the fact that some of you may be getting tired of being where you are. But I'll tell you, right through Friday, the winds, the conditions, it looks just like a beat, with plenty of wind and convective activity on top of that. So I virtually canned that thought in my mind. The run to Fiji is no better, even worse, really. Those of you that are not quite at Minerva Reef and are planning on going there need to step on the gas a little bit to avoid the adverse wind and the convective activity, mainly due to the polar dip that we're talking about. So that is about it for the update. Nobody's going to be happy about this. By the way, the seas looking later in the week in that run between Minerva and up in the islands, they could very well get up to 4.5 meters. Now, that's not trivial. And put some wind on top of that, and it's going to bring some seasickness to some people, like the boss, for instance, here. So that is about it. Now, we had some questions about the ensembles that I used. So we thought we'd take a little bit of your time. If you're not interested in this, you can depart. But I wanted to explain a little bit about what ensembling is all about and its value in the forecasting, and I use it all the time. Now, what that is, ensemble forecasting, it uses slightly different initial conditions that are definitely plausible given the past and the current set of observations. As you know, all of these global models have to start with something. So they all start with data from the balloon launches and satellite data and data from ground stations and so forth and so on. So it's that initial data that's extremely important. And sometimes even an ensemble of forecasts may use different forecast models as different starting points. Examples could be GFS for winds at 500, EC for moisture, UK Met for temperature, etc., etc. Each one of these events, like moisture or wind at different levels, are referred to as members when you look at an ensemble. Now, understand that there's two sources of uncertainty in the weather models. One are the errors that are introduced by just plain chaos. The favorite person to talk about chaos is Bob McDevitt. He introduced us to chaos quite a few years ago, actually. Not his invention; it's been talked about in meteorological circles for years, and it's chaos is simply what it sounds like. That while it's say it's sunny now, it's probably going to be sunny an hour from now, but then it really isn't, and we can't really explain why. That's sort of chaos, and that is what happens with initial conditions. They're not always going to be as you think they are. Now, there's also errors because of imperfections in the model itself. These models are not perfect. You should be aware also that accuracy on these models is measured by a skill score. And believe me, there are formidable battles between the geniuses that have created GFS and ECMWF, UK Met, etc. All of the models out there. They've got some very, very bright people that are very proud of their work. And they're always battling to say, we're the best, we're the best. So we, of course, are the most interested in which ones really are the best. And they wind up being really ECMWF and GFS. Actually, EC has got a bit of an edge in some areas, but not so much of an edge in others. So it's a pretty tight race. And GFS has also come out with a new version. Now, a lot of people have asked me, I hesitate to do this on the radio, but many of you have asked me the reason that I don't endorse Predict Wind's proprietary models. Now, they're fine when they're showing the GFS and the EC side by side, and that's very helpful, and they do a good job on that. But to my knowledge, they don't provide skill scores, and I've asked them to provide it, but I have not received anything from them. And on the basis of that, if it's unknown to me, I'm just not going to use it. They could be excellent for all I know, but that is all I know. So let's forget about that now and talk about the essence of a given model's accuracy. That is how well that they handle these initial conditions. Now, inevitable errors in the initial conditions are going to grow as the model goes forward in time. So if we have bad data in the very beginning, that bad data grows and gets worse as the model goes forward in time. Remember that all of the forecast centers, the EC people, the GFS people, they all get the same information. It's a network that the weather people have. So all of this information from the satellites, the balloons, etc., goes to all of these people. And then they input it in their models, and it's their models that interpret this data, and they're the ones that utilize the formulas to project what's going to happen for the future. So, if the data is off, obviously, to begin with, what hope does the model have? And that's part of the problem. And as I have tried to drum into everybody who thinks that if they're looking at a model, this damn well is what the weather is going to be. Well, that is not the case at all. You have to please remember that the model is using initial conditions that are not complete, and they're using formulas of the atmosphere that are not fully understood. In fact, there's a lot of formulas that have not even been invented yet that relate to the atmosphere that would make forecasting more accurate. So they're doing the best they can. Things are getting better, but really, once you get beyond 3 days, then the model becomes more of an idea. Now, let's get back to what an ensemble is. So what the ensemble model does is it tweaks these initial conditions or members in a way to attempt to make the forecast a little more accurate. And that's what each of these centers do in their own way. And they offer them up as an ensemble forecast. An example, I make you understand this. As an example, we say we want to know if the GFS model that we're looking at, they're forecasting a high forming at XY coordinates at such and such a date. Is that really going to happen? So we may want to go then to the GFS ensemble and take a look further for that particular date. And let's say that 32 members that have been tweaked look like a bowl of spaghetti. Then I can tell you that no, it doesn't look very good for this particular high to develop. Wait a minute. Take a sip of coffee here. Now, if most of the 32 members, and we'll call this particular member an isobar, if most of them fall on top of one another to make fat lines of barometric pressure, then it looks very good for the original model. Now, what I mean by that is, say the global model is talking about one of the isobars, well, we'll call it a 1030. Now, the tweaks that I'm talking about, what they'll do is one member will be 1030.1, another tweak 1030.2, 1030.3, and then the other way around, 1029.9, 1029.8, etc., until we get up to about 32 of these little tweaks. And then the model gets run. And so if all of these tweaks are very, very close to each other, then that line, that isobar line of 1030 is going to look bigger and bigger. But if those lines are really all over the place on the chart that you see in front of you, and it really does look like a bowl of spaghetti when things are not looking good, then I will tell you that I don't have any confidence in what the model has to say. So, listen, there's a lot more to it than what I have just given you, but that's the use of ensembling. And another important use of it is tracking tropical cyclones, which we're trying to do with this 95P. We're looking at an ensemble for that. And when I looked at it last night, it's baffling in the sense of I really don't have any real good feelings about what it's saying. In other words, it's showing the center of the depression over Rotuma, basically. And then when I start to look at the ensembles, I'm seeing a whole bunch of them going to the west of Fiji or over western Fiji and to the west of there. And then I'm seeing a number of them going to the east of the center of Fiji and over the Savu Savu area and whatnot. You try to blend those together in your mind, saying that, well, maybe it'll all go and, we'll blend it in, we'll average this out, and this is where it might be. And that's where I come up with, well, it looks like it's going to cut right down through Fiji itself. So we don't know. And one of the things about tracking that I've experienced in all of the years I've been doing this is that we seldom get the track correct. There's a lot of other things that affect the track, but I'll tell you, it's a tough deal. So anyway, I'll quit. Probably went to sleep anyway. So if any of you have any questions on what's going on, feel free to come down. And I quite honestly feel for you folks at Minerva. Patricia's having a laughing fit over here. What are you laughing about?
Well, these words, like members, I always thought members were in a club, and I've got this, I won't say who, but anyway, from Opua, the talk about ensembles, well, it's a revelation. It's not just matching shoes and handbags.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say something dirtier. But anyway, so those of you at Minerva, I think to be safe are going to wind up being there for a while until this really does sort itself out. The people that are in New Zealand, in Marsden or up there in Opua, if it were chameleon, like I said, we probably would sit this out because there's too many ifs. And the last thing that you want to do is to have a severe polar dip or a depression forming between the islands and a high to its south. These are where these very, very dangerous squash zones establish themselves. And over the years, we have lost many yachts, I'm afraid to say, due to this. Some think that, well, it's not going to be that bad, but a squash zone, when you're at about 30 south or 25 south, is very dangerous. And I'm not sure that you want to take the chance. Younger folk tend to do this sort of thing, make their break, and oftentimes they do. They are successful and get to the destination. You have a better chance, obviously, for making Vanuatu a Newcastle, except for that possibility of a depression forming sometime next week, and that will put a real fly in the ointment. But if that depression doesn't form and the polar dip is not very serious, well, then you can go, I'm sure. But only time will tell, and I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't want to guess when lives are at stake. So there you go. We'll fill you in tomorrow on developments.
Well, you're very light this morning, Ron. Pilgrim, go ahead.
Yeah, Roger, I was checking to see whether you got the report of
Yes, I did, thank you. We're finally back in communication, so I've got that report came in this morning. I guess one of you, I think probably Andrew, talked to him and got our address correct. Those that are, I'll just repeat it, our email did change. For those that had it from a couple of years ago, our email is now ghradio, all run together, at xtra.co.nz. Yeah, thanks for that reminder, Ron. I've just been going through, and Alchemy 2, your YIT report, I found it on YIT, has come through about 20 minutes ago, and you will need to sort out what you guys are doing. They are at 11, what's the daisy? I'll just flip the, wherever it is. I tried to send you an email actually to, what I did yesterday was update people who we knew were en route or needing to make decisions, and I could not get an email through to your sale mail address, and I struggled with, I couldn't get one through to Mezzaluna, but Mezzaluna actually is now at Salu Salu, so we don't need to worry about you, where it's 100% cloud cover, surprise, surprise, and light winds. Just a quick breeze through Cruisersatnet and YIT. We've got Mana. They've got Southeast 10 in the lee of Uoleva in Hapai's, a lovely, lovely spot. It's cloudy with light showers, 1014. Around the Minerva area, we've got Exocet Strike, Makushla, and a host of others. Southeast, about 12 to 16 by the look of it, only 10% cloud cover. those still out there trying to just wait for light, 1 to 1.5 meters swell. Doesn't sound much, but even it's a bit annoying. Good morning to you guys. North Star won't copy us. They are on their way, so we'll need to get an email to them. They're at 3133. Stephen Kim and a couple of others on board. They've got, Mr. Toy, good morning to you guys. No wind, they're on the northwest side of the Whātei there. And for those that know Kailani, a couple of years ago, Harley and Jennifer with their daughter Sophia, they're in Bermuda now. And the other bit of news is quite interestingly, there are 3 boats on the way from Hobart to New Zealand. Sperari, Tamariki and Lucy. Lucy left yesterday, I think it was. So interesting there. And of course we've got Jan, should I say, on the rider down the bottom of New Zealand, trying to scoot along to get back on her course after her knockdown to get back home to Vancouver. All right, is there anybody with anything else? There was a request to look at more information on ensembles, and I suspect Weather Online is the main source for getting to grips with it. Once you start, it's one of those things you'll just keep looking and looking at the different models and looking at what they do, and you can compare things on that site, and it's really, really interesting. Give you something to do while you wait for decent weather to leave. Okay, anybody else with anything? Oh, a very good signal from you, David. Good morning, Anahata.
Good morning, Patricia and David. Obviously, I'm trying to make a decision. I'm southwest 350 nautical miles from Minerva. If I merge her, I could get there by Wednesday. David didn't give wind speed on Tuesday night, and I'm just concerned about getting straight into headwind there.
All right, let's have a look at those people that are a little slower getting to Minerva. Anahata looks like late Wednesday, and I think there was a couple of others. I think Ponyo is pretty slow. Have to crack the whip there. He won't hear me. I don't think they have much of a radio. But I'm going to pass the microphone to David. Superb. Your radio didn't used to be that great, I don't think, but it's superb now, David. Here's my David.
Okay, I'm looking at Wednesday, assuming you're not quite there yet. It looks to me like southeast winds, east, southeast to southeast, 20 to 25 knots. So there's going to be a bit of breeze as you approach Minerva Reef at that time.
Tuesday night.
Let me look in the evening. You're not going to go in at night, I hope.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. All right, hang on. Well, I'll put it at Tuesday late afternoon because I know you're not going to go in at night. So I would say southeast 20. Now, give a plus or minus on that. My rule, by the way, for all of you out there, I've heard it 1,000 times, I'm sure. But when I give you a wind, generally, I like you to put 5 knots on either side of it. So if I say 20, it could be 15 to 25. That's a pretty big band, I know. But anyhow, that's just my rule of thumb. Gusts are a different story. If I say 20 knots, then you could expect gusts to be 40 to 50% higher than that number. And where those gusts come from are from the cloud that is going overhead. The airflow at that level, if they're tall clouds, typically they'd be at 750 millibar or 500 millibar. There's a lot of wind up there, a lot more than at the surface. And that wind comes down, and that's what you're getting. You're getting those downflow winds very briefly. So that's the gust. And they don't last long, but they're quite annoying. Now that's a different gust from a thunderstorm gust. So when you're at anchor in Fiji and you have got thunderstorms in the area, be aware that when the gust fronts arrive on the surface, they could spin you around 180 degrees from where you were originally pointing. That means if you're one of these people that like to anchor close to shore, you could be counting pebbles. So be aware of that in thunderstorms. So I think that covers the winds of Minerva.
Was there anything else, David?
You talked about northeast wind. That was my concern.
Oh yeah.
No.
Hang on. He says no. Hang on. When did you did say something
Southeast.
that was earlier on? You were talking about when you were talking about the northeast winds.
That's going on to Tonga.
Okay. Oh, he says that was going on from there to Tonga, so you will definitely go into Minerva. Over.
Roger.
Yeah, that's why it's sensible to go into Minerva because of the headwinds if you wanted to go further. All right. Hopefully that's all clear. Anybody? I'm looking at this satellite picture. That it's rather a big red blob, isn't it? Okay. Anybody else? I'll just turn the microphone up again. Sorry, the speaker up again. Try again. Over. Oh, Alchemy 2, I think. Yes, your report did come through. You've got a bit of a decision to make. What have you decided? Over. What a good decision. All right. Yeah, nothing like bashing into headwinds to make a alternative decision, is it?
Oh, sure.
Hang on. David's going to make some more comments on that one. Hang on. Go ahead.
Yep, hang fire on that. I just wanted to mention that the previous boat wanting eventually to get onto Tonga on that Wednesday time frame, those winds in the Tonga area, we're looking at east-northeast 30 knots. So that's something that you really don't want to encounter, I don't think. But different from what I said about Minerva, there it is southeast. So here's the chief.
All right, there's going to be quite a party at Minerva, and actually it's quite pleasant to have a bit of gathering there, because when you get to the islands, everyone's got their own things to do, windsurfing or snorkeling or diving or hiking or whatever, but at Minerva, you're stuck with each other, and it's rather fun to get to know everybody, because you've really got nothing else to do. Now, who else was calling?
Somebody called.
North Star, yeah, we're going to have a struggle. I'm surprised that he actually can hear us, because North Star are down at about 31 at the moment, 31, 33. Could you ask what he needs to know? Over.
North Star, this is my caddy. How are you?
They're going to Fiji and they're at 3133 and 176 at the moment. So they should go to Minerva, shouldn't they?
No, or go to Vanuatu or Nuku.
No, they've got crew on board, so they'll probably have.
So maybe the crew wants to.
Yeah, but they'll have fares back from Fiji, I would imagine.
I'll mention instead.
Well, I've started to lose you, Andrew, so that's interesting. Hopefully you can hear, but I did hear that North Star down there have 3.5 metre seas. I'm going to pass the microphone because they do need to decide what they're going to do. The most sensible thing, of course, would be to head off to Vanuatu, but I'm sure with 2 crew on board, they are a bit stuck to get to Fiji. I'm passing the microphone.
Well, what Patricia said is actually a good idea for you people to consider. Anybody that's down there around 30, particularly 31 or 32, you're not that far from New Zealand. You have a choice of turning around, of course. But if you're all in agreement, you should be able to take your 5 days from 30. You're only looking at about 4.5 days to New Caledonia, and you should be able to make that before anything bad develops. That's if the crew is willing to do that, and you're willing to do that. But making a destination change, we've always thought in all the years we cruised, kind of a fun, interesting thing to do. And you have your heart set on going to one spot, but conditions are such that you may have to think about another spot. So anyway, that's food for thought, but don't chew too long.
Andrew, did you copy that? We didn't get any response from Andrew. I think propagation has just changed. It is quite late. What we'll do is just send North Star an email. Okay, I don't think there will be anybody else. Is there anybody else needing anything? If there is, I'll need a relay because I can't hear anybody. No, nothing heard. Well, you know our email address, ghradio@extra.co.nz. We won't be doing too much outside today. It's pretty snotty looking here, just cloudy and grey and horrible. So have a good day, everybody. It sounds much nicer at Minerva, actually, with the sunshine. We'll be back again tomorrow. If there's anything exciting out, we'll respond to any emails and leave you with it. This is Gulf Harbour Radio Weekly. The frequency's all yours. I'll turn